Look, what a gorgeous view opens up from the cupola. You are now able to see unique pictures with your own eyes. Watching it as we do here, just like us, you can appreciate the beauty of our planet. And you see that our Earth is round. There are no whales or elephants holding it up. Our wonderful planet freely floats on its own in what is called space.
Does the FBI have a hate crime on its hands here in Middle Tennessee? Well, the feds have been called in to help look into a hateful message left for a family with 3 African-American children. News Channel 5's Jason Lamb traveled to Giles County, where that family's father says he's had enough.
Spray painted on Donald Crawford's property is a word he says is pure hatred.
He stood up and saw her, and she took off and ran.
It didn't take long to find what Crawford says that person left behind.
The young male had written this on the side of the wall.
A racial slur saying African Americans should be put to death.
It is a direct threat to my adopted children.
Crawford shares something he says he hates about them.
I hate that you're so much of a coward you can't approach me directly with your feelings.
I'll do more for your Mexican kids. I'll send them back to Mexico.
Vulgar,
Back to Mexico.
racist, and hurtful.
See, he just has a problem with his sexuality.
That's 39-year-old transient Robert Arnold, who's now behind bars, yelling at a group of 10 and 12-year-olds.
It's called the game, kids. You want to learn about real reality? 911. Go ahead, call him.
Marcos Garriva is the man behind the camera.
It was enraging to hear someone talk to these kids that we look at like family like that.
He says they were filming this movie scene for Tomorrow Maker Films. Denver police were able to find and arrest the man. He's being held on an outstanding warrant.
He talked about a terror attack in Times Square. 37-year-old Mohammed Rafiq Naji appeared in federal court in downtown Brooklyn. He's a citizen of Yemen, but a permanent legal resident of the United States living in Brooklyn. The Justice Department says he's been supporting ISIL or ISIS on social media since 2014. The complaint says in 2015 he traveled overseas in an effort to join ISIS.
The FBI moved in after more than a year of tracking 37-year-old Mohammed Naji. Officials say the suspect had actually tried to join ISIS overseas and then returned to New York, expressing support in recorded conversations for an attack, like the one in Nice, France, where an ISIS follower drove a semi-truck through crowds attending the Bastille Day celebration, killing 84 people. If there is a truck, he said, I mean a garbage truck, and one drives it there to Times Square and crushes them, Times Square Day.
This was an arrest to disrupt a potential attack, given that this individual was following ISIS direction to carry out an attack against a large crowd.
The meeting of far-right wingers in Washington.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
Some gave Nazi-style salutes. And at a restaurant, troubled reality TV star Tila Tequila gave the Nazi salute with these knuckleheads. She even tweeted Sieg Heil, Hail victory, but she misspelled Sieg. Hey, nobody said she was smart.
No one will honor us for losing gracefully. No one mourns the great crimes committed against us. For us, it is conquer or die.
Alt-right is an effort in the digital age to try to legitimize folks who are really not so new at all. These are folks, many of them have been engaged in all kinds of bigotry, and as I said, we saw it in the Washington conference in more blatant form. Usually these days they're trying to be a little bit more subtle in order to get legitimacy. So, in other words, they kind of deny that they're racist or anti-anyone. They're saying just like other groups stand up for their group, they're standing up for whites. But I think actually one of the good things, if you will, in this terrible experience is that who they are was completely revealed by what took place in Washington.
An Italian restaurant in Washington, D.C. has apologized for inadvertently hosting a white nationalist group Friday night. On its Facebook page, Maggiano's Little Italy said it wasn't aware it was hosting the alt-right National Policy Institute. The restaurant said the reservation was made at the last minute under a different name. After the event, An attendee's tweet appeared to show a Heil Hitler salute, which Maggiano's called extremely offensive.
America was, until this past generation, a white country, designed for ourselves and our posterity.
Richard Spencer, the white nationalist who said "Hail Trump" and "Hail our people" during a Washington, D.C. conference, told NBC News that his comments were meant to be cheeky, exuberant, and ironic. Spencer's National Policy Institute was described by the Southern Poverty Law Center as one of the most influential purveyors of academic racism in the country. Spencer also said that the conference was the next step in returning to the once fringe network of white nationalism that vaulted into the mainstream political scene with Donald Trump's chief strategist. This plan includes everyone from hardcore white supremacists and neo-Nazis to critics of so-called political correctness.
Joining me now is President and CEO of the Southern Poverty Law Center, Richard Cohen. Let's talk about what was reported during Trump's meeting at the New York Times. He said that the alt-right is not a group he wants to energize and doesn't believe his candidacy did energize them. What would you point to as the new breath of momentum that is into this movement if, as Donald Trump says, it was not him?
Well, look, he's been slow to disavow these folk and feigning ignorance about the white supremacists who have been supporting him all along. You know, at first he says he doesn't know, who David Duke is. Now he's saying he has no idea why the alt-right people are supporting him, and it's obvious. You know, he's been singing their song ever since he came down that escalator at his Trump Tower. He's been talking about banning Muslims. He's been talking about deporting millions and millions of people. Those things are music to the ears of the white supremacists. You can't take Donald Trump seriously when he says he doesn't know why he's energizing them.
We turn now to look at the rest of the incoming administration of President-elect Donald Trump. Last week, Trump made 3 key announcements to his cabinet. He offered Lieutenant General Michael Flynn the position of National Security Advisor. Flynn is well known for his anti-Muslim worldview, having called Islam a cancer and saying, quote, "fear of Muslims is rational," unquote. On Friday, Kansas Congressmember Mike Pompeo was named as CIA director. Pompeo has opposed closing Guantanamo Bay prison. In 2013, he visited the notorious U.S. prison and said of the prisoners who were on hunger strike, quote, "it looked to me like a lot of them had put on weight." He's also a vocal opponent of the Iran nuclear deal. And in one of his first appointments, Trump selected Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions to be Attorney General. Sessions is a former prosecutor who was elected to the Senate in 1996. As a senator, he's consistently supported anti-immigration legislation. In 2010, he was a leading proponent of the efforts to repeal the 14th Amendment, which grants citizenship to everyone born in the United States. Sessions has also been a vocal opponent of the Voting Rights Act. In 1986, President Ronald Reagan nominated Sessions for a federal judgeship, but he was denied confirmation because of his history of racist comments, including reportedly saying he thought the Ku Klux Klan, quote, "was okay until I found out they smoked pot," unquote.
President-elect Donald Trump has released a video message outlining his policy plans for his first 100 days in office, including measures on jobs, trade, energy and immigration.
On energy, I will cancel job-killing restrictions on the production of American energy, including shale energy and clean coal, creating many millions of high-paying jobs.
While Trump made no mention on repealing Obamacare or building a wall along the border with Mexico, he vowed to stop visa fraud and create a plan to counter cyber attacks.
If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception.
Well, it looks like that plan is out the window. After vowing to pursue further investigations of Hillary Clinton's private email server and the Clinton Foundation, Trump's administration will drop the matter altogether.
Look, there's a tradition in American politics that after you win an election, you sort of put things behind you. And if that's the decision he reached, that's perfectly consistent with sort of a historical pattern of things come up, you say a lot of things, even some bad things might happen, and then you can sort of put it behind you in order to unite the nation. So if he made that decision, I would be supportive of it.
Breitbart News is coming after Trump for what they call a broken promise. During Trump's campaign, he repeatedly said if elected, he plans to put Hillary Clinton in jail for her criminal activities. However, now the president-elect is saying he will no longer pursue that agenda. The extreme right news source Breitbart is furious, yet Trump's campaign manager Kellyanne Conway says that perhaps it is a good thing since it leaves room for Trump to heal her.
Now, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has outlined what he intends to do first when he takes office in January in a video message online. On Trump's to-do list is pulling the U.S. out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal, this on his very first day in the White House. Now, make note, the TPP trade deal was signed by 12 countries, which together cover 40% of the world's economy.
The trade deal, which had been one of the major objectives of the Obama administration, is currently awaiting ratification. It underwent a conclusive legal review in late 2015, but the White House ultimately decided it would not try to get it passed in Congress as a result of Trump's election.
TPP の発行を目指すという意見については、12カ国の会議ではそのような議論にはなりませんでした。TPP は米国抜きでは意味がない。米国新政権の方針について、現段階で予断を持ってコメントすることは差し控えたいと思います。
I mean, the Trans-Pacific Partnership is dead. Yep. And the issue in the next administration is not going to be, do we go forward with TPP or do we go forward with, it's going to be how much do we roll things back? Yeah. What happens? Do we impose tariffs on Mexico? Do we impose tariffs on China? So we are moving into a very different era. U.S. administrations for the last 70 years have believed that global trade was a win-win. It was good for American companies, good for Americans, good for the world. This administration does not believe that.
In addition to proposals on energy and immigration, Donald Trump has said the US will quit the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal on his first day as president. TPP was designed to bring down tariffs, but Trump has described the agreement signed by 12 countries covering 40% of the world's economy as a potential disaster. There was also a strong reaction from China's foreign ministry on Trump's plans to pull out of the deal. We hope that these trade deals will follow the World Trade Organization rules and be helpful to the multilateral trade system. Also, we hope these agreements can reinforce rather than thwart each other.
Intellectual property, labor rights, some of the things touted in the deal, Ralph Winnie. How are you going to safeguard those without it?
Well, I think Donald Trump is going to negotiate new trade deals that are going to be in the beneficial interests of the American people. What people in Europe need to understand is, in many ways, there were many interests, not just Donald Trump and some Republicans that were opposed to TPP, but also Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders for the reasons of concern towards the American worker. And as we see in the industrial Midwest, they're lacking jobs. And this idea of globalization has really hurt the American industrial worker. So it's going to be incumbent on Donald Trump to renegotiate.
Explain that for us. How does scrapping TPP bring more jobs back to the United States?
They're making all our products. They're taking all our jobs. And then they loan the money back and we pay them interest. It's an amazing phenomenon. China is an abuser of the United States. China is not our friend.
What do? Do we tax China?
Well, one thing we don't do is have state dinners for the president of China when he comes and have a beautiful 5-star state dinner. That's one thing we don't do. So China is not our friend. They are an abuser of this country.
When it comes to how you would deal with China as
Very
president?
easy. Very easy. We're going to put a 25% tax on products that come into the United States, on your products.
Huge tariff.
Well, I don't think it's so huge. They're manipulating their currency.
They'll think it's huge.
No, you know what's going to happen? Probably, if it's said by the right messenger. You know, if the wrong messenger gives the message, they won't care. If the right messenger, they'll say, if it's said by the right messenger, somebody like me that knows how to say things. But if it's said by the right messenger, China will come to the table in 2 seconds.
14 people were injured after a magnitude 7.4 earthquake hit near Fukushima, Japan. At least 3 people were seriously injured with broken bones. The quake triggered moderate tsunamis, but nothing high enough to cause major damage. Thousands were told to evacuate the area.
Tuesday's quake was reportedly an aftershock of the devastating earthquake that caused a deadly tsunami and severe nuclear catastrophe in the same region in 2011. We spoke to journalist Pio D'Amelia. He told us despite hopes for the best, people are fearful.
We're standing here in the Papatia Fault, a few kilometres south of the Clarence River Bridge on the Kaikoura coast. Looking here at actually the fault plane, the plane of movement along the fault itself, where this side here has moved up by about 1.5 metres. And we can see the gravels here and the gravels on that side. But what's really interesting is that we can see lines of movement here on this fault plane which are moving down a little bit in this fashion. And that means we can see, it looks impressive that we're standing here 1.5 metres high, but in fact most of the movement has been along a plane something like this. So this side here has moved forwards by many, many metres. On the other side, there's as much as 6 metres of uplift.
Well, the Russian military has deployed a new missile system to the Baltic region in a tit-for-tat move to the U.S.-led NATO missile deployment in Eastern Europe. According to the Interfax news agency, the military has stationed Bastion missile launchers in the Kaliningrad exclave bordering Poland and Lithuania. Moscow is also planning to deploy S-400 missiles and the nuclear-capable Iskander projectiles in the country's westernmost region. The Kremlin says the deployment is in response to threats posed by a planned U.S. missile system near the Russian border. Meanwhile, the U.S. has slammed the Russian deployment, saying it would destabilize European security.
The deployment of Iskander and S-400 missiles to Kaliningrad is destabilizing to European security. Russia has made threats to move Iskander missiles to Kaliningrad now for the past decade in response to a variety of developments in Europe, none of which demand such a military response.
Kirby made the remarks during a White House briefing. He called on Moscow to refrain from, quote, words or deeds that are inconsistent with the goal of promoting security and stability.
NATO and the United States have been developing, I would say, since 1991, since the end of the Cold War. They have been developing an aggressive stance with the deployment of both strategic as well as conventional weapons right onto Russia's border. And now we saw this unfolding in several stages.
Europe should start thinking of its nuclear protection given U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's ambiguous position on his country's commitments to Europe. That's according to a senior German lawmaker.
The U.S. nuclear shield and nuclear security guarantees are imperative for Europe. If the United States no longer wants to provide this guarantee, Europe still needs nuclear protection for deterrent purposes.
Roderick Kiesevetter's words come at a time when some polls show that 93% of Germans want nuclear weapons to be banned completely. Now, people have also expressed concerns about Germany's recent military boost too. The country has already taken steps to expand its military with its 2017 federal budget plan, setting aside €36.6 billion for defence spending. Now, additionally, the country's defence ministry has revealed it will recruit over 14,000 more troops. On top of all that, it's going to purchase more than €9 billion worth of new equipment. While German Chancellor Angela Merkel has attempted to justify the expenditure, some politicians aren't too enamoured.
7 Muslim men who formed a Sharia street patrol have been acquitted by a German court which ruled they didn't break any laws against wearing political uniforms. The so-called Sharia police group first made headlines in September 2014. That was when, wearing orange vests, the men started to patrol the streets of the city of Wuppertal. They demanded that people stop drinking, stop gambling and stop listening to music. The court claimed that they could only have broken the law if the uniforms were, quote, suggestively militant or intimidating.
في اليوم السابع من الحملة الجوية على مدينة حلب استمر القصف الجوي المكثف على أحياء.
It's the 7th day of the air campaign on Aleppo. Intense airstrikes continue on the besieged city. Once again, the bombing targeted medical facilities and service centres. Military jets and helicopters also dropped missiles, bombs and barrel bombs on makeshift hospitals. El Bayan Hospital has been hit by 2 barrel bombs. Another hospital near El Bayan Hospital was attacked with a barrel bomb. This only adds to the destruction already done. They're the only 2 makeshift hospitals and they're already out of operation because of previous strikes. But it seems that the regime wants to demolish them completely and prevent any attempts by locals to rebuild them. Fierce battles are going on between regime forces and the armed opposition on various fronts. The opposition is trying to recapture some of the areas it lost to regime forces on Monday.
The fight between the Syrian army and anti-Assad forces remains intense in the key battleground of Aleppo. In the government-controlled part of the city, social facilities continue to come under heavy rebel shelling. In one recent incident, a school was hit. We heard from witnesses.
دخل الصاروخ من الشباك من هون المعلمة واقفة هون كان شايفين الدم والهاد طفلة جنبها طفلة زينب استشهدت والمعلمة واقفة جنبها بترت قدمها
قذيفة أول وحدة نزلت هون بعدها طبت بعض بهاي قبل بالصيف ضربت هون ميخائيل كشور.
Well, the US ambassador to the UN mentioned 13 names in total. She said that 3 of them are high-ranking Syrian military officials who are already subject to sanctions by Washington. She also stated that ISIL and other opposition groups have committed abuses but did not name any individuals the US considers responsible for those. Samantha Power's comments left the Russian deputy ambassador to the UN outraged.
You even forgot about your golden standard, the presumption of innocence. The court must prove who's guilty.
Well, when the Syrian envoy started speaking at the meeting, the US ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, left the room, along with her British and French counterparts. Russia described the walkout as, quote, unacceptable behaviour. We spoke to author and historian Gerald Horne about the accusations coming from Washington.
The question might be asked of the U.S. authorities, why are they not charging the so-called Islamic State with war crimes? This is an old trick by the U.S. authorities. That is to say, they try to throw dust in the eyes of the public by not addressing specific claims, but speaking in breezy and gauzy generalizations. The International Criminal Court, which I assume the United States will try to send these Syrian officials to in The Hague, is losing credibility with every passing day.
I had on many occasions been forced to raise my voice on behalf of the Russian Orthodox Church in defense of those whom I called the persecuted Christians of the Middle East. Of all the minorities in the region, it is Christians who have been suffering the most. The statistics show an appalling dynamic. There used to be 1.5 million Christians in Iraq. Now there is less than 150,000. It is perfectly clear that, if the nations currently engaged in the interventions in Syria and Iraq are truly committed to eradicating terrorism, and if that stated objective is their only true goal, and there's no hidden agenda, then it shouldn't be a problem for us to join efforts and work together. After all, what is ISIS? We once defeated the Nazi powers through collective efforts, and they had half of Europe enslaved. So it seems to me it should be fairly easy to do away with ISIS, and thereby resolve the refugee crisis, and all the other disasters and tragedies that are rooted in this conflict.
Очень ждал того момента сегодняшнего дня, когда смогу с вами познакомиться, не только потому, что вы представляете великую страну, но и из-за ваших личных лидерских качеств. Западные нации сегодня пытаются нападать и запугивать малые государства. Это свидетельство их ханжества. Они, как мне кажется, хотели бы начать войну. Они уже начинают войну и кампанию против нас, хотя участвовать в этой войне сами они боятся. И возьмем, например, Соединенные Штаты Америки, которые ведут войны по всему миру, во Вьетнаме, в Афганистане, в Ираке. Это абсолютно деструктивная политика.
Внимание, провожу разблокировку КПУ. 10-й зафиксировать время разблокировки КПУ. Пуск!
Расчет внимания, доложить об осмотре местности БСП номер 4.
Обнаружен. Провести доразведку. Огонь!
We have seen at least 4 gunshot wounds, 3 of them I know to the face and head, rubber bullets.
It really does feel like a war zone, and it doesn't feel like we're in America in 2016.
Yeah, baby, right. This is a sovereign nation right here. This is sovereign people's land right here.
Oh! Who the
You okay? You okay? Here.
Russian scientists dug the world's deepest hole and discovered water from Noah's Great Flood, disproving the myth that the Earth is made up of dry, rocky layers. It has been claimed. The Kola borehole could only go down as deep as 12 kilometers before being blocked by a mystery force. A video exposing the so-called Kola conspiracy says the established view of the Earth's makeup, crust, mantle and core, was proved wrong by the geological dig. Scientists were shocked to discover that instead of solid, dry, dense rock, massive amounts of water were found. The video's publishers, Plano Existential, claim this proves the biblical event of Noah's flood is a reality, and that the flood waters drained to this subterranean sinkhole.
and it's it's amazing because the arch, what it's saying is, and it really reveals everything, because through just the way Baal got into Israel, Baal got into America.
God letting them do this, is this, I mean, like the enemy comes right in and puts this in New York City?
Yeah. And it is as people say things and they don't realize why they're saying them. When the guy said, of all the places on earth, it belongs in New York City, he said more than he knew. This is the abortion. This is all these things began there. And so much of immorality as also movements began there. So this is I don't believe anybody. It's just like with the harbingers. Nobody's putting it. It's a spiritual thing. It's a prophetic thing. It's a prophetic sign of what's actually happening in our culture. But there it is. There it is. I mean, who would think? Of all things, why? But why all those things? Why? Why do they put up a song? Why do they quote from Isaiah 9:10, which is judgment on America? Why do they do that? They don't know why they're doing it, but the harbingers must manifest.
Wow.
This is the sign. We are in the days of Baal.